Our next reader has got a resume that's about literally a mile long. I mean, seriously, she's a powerhouse in every direction. But the reason that she's particularly special to me is a couple years ago, we spent a Christmas dinner together in which we were listening to the poet David White. And some short time later, yeah, if you know David White, he's incredible. Some short time later, he was speaking in Colorado Springs. And so I asked Dora, I said, do you want to go see David White in Colorado Springs? And she said, yeah, let's go. Well, this trip turned out, and I didn't know this about Dora at the time, but when you're around her, like magical things kind of happen. Yeah, and it was a very magical trip. It was filled with like a snowstorm and every like species of wildlife you could imagine, elk surrounding the truck. And what I came to find out is that she's one of the most seriously authentic people I've ever met. And in this, she's become such a friend, like the intuitive kind of friend you have that like the moment you're down, you get that phone call, you know, they haven't called in like, 6 weeks, but it's that moment. That's Dora McQuaid.
So is the white paper cup with water in it for... Yay. Oh. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be on this particular stage again. I love this stage in part because the stage lights are so fabulously bright, I can't see any of you. More importantly, it's an honor to be home in Taos briefly again, and to be able to join an event as compelling and wild and typical of Taos as this one, and even more so to be able to do that on behalf of Clint and the incredible work that he does in regard to the men's homeless shelter. Clint does not talk about his history or why he is so committed to that work or all that he has accomplished in his efforts to provide shelter for men who are homeless. And I'm not going to out you. I'm just going to tell you thank you. And thank you for honoring me with the opportunity to join you when it worked with my travel schedule finally. I want to talk for a minute about homelessness because ultimately it's why we're here. We're all here to hear these amazing stories one after another. Everybody has a crazy Taos story, right? How you got here, it's full of synchronicity, a ton of grace, something magical happens, whether the truck is surrounded by elk or you hear a voice that tells you, go and paint. We all have these astonishing stories, and what a tremendous gift in this community for all of us to come together and hear these stories of people that we know, sometimes people that we love, sometimes people that we might want to love, on behalf of supporting these nonprofits that so desperately need our support. And yet the men's homeless shelter is not only a nonprofit that needs our support, it's there because the men who are served by it are in desperate need of our support. Homelessness in this country is a travesty. It's a travesty anywhere. In this country, even more so. And I'm not going to go into that. It seems pretty evident. However, there are several intersections, in fact, around homelessness and my particular story. And some of you know that I do international work addressing the issues of both domestic and sexual violence using poetry and performance and speaking as my primary mediums. And I do that work because I am a survivor of both domestic and sexual violence. One of the first intersections here tonight is that for women and children, domestic violence is the #1 cause of homelessness. 60% of the women and children who are homeless in this country are homeless because they are fleeing domestic violence that is threatening their lives. Recently, 50% of the major United States cities stated that domestic violence is the primary cause of homelessness in their cities. Cities included were Philadelphia, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Antonio, Seattle, Trenton, Charleston, Nashville, St. Paul, Salt Lake City, Burlington, Cedar Rapids, and the list goes on. Over 80% of the survivors entering shelters identify 2 primary needs: finding housing that I can afford is second only to finding safety for myself. I have been one of those women. I have been a homeless woman with multiple degrees, 3 teaching gigs as faculty at major universities in this country, a woman who has owned 3 businesses and has traveled the world to speak. I was homeless for 3 months, trying to get away from a former partner who held me hostage for 17 hours with a pistol grip riot shotgun in what had once been our home. And the whole time those 17 hours unfolded, he kept saying to me, "I love you, but I just don't know." The first time I came to Taos, and I drove up the canyon from Santa Fe, I was in a ranch truck with this man and 2 handguns on the truck seat between us to remind me of my place and to ensure my silence. We pulled into Taos and we stopped at Cafe Taza, and I walked into the Taos Poetry Circus in full swing. 25 poets crowded into the back courtyard sharing their poems. And I stood up and I shared a poem. And the people who stepped out of that crowd in front of this man are the same people who still hold me in my life here today. It took me 7 months to get out. It took me months longer to go through the court system, to get his guns taken away from him, and to begin to rebuild not only my life, but myself. And for 3 of those months, I was homeless and running from a man with a gun who loved me. I'm going to share a couple of poems with you tonight. I'm not going to read from the book that I am currently on tour with. I thought I would, but I'm not. I've changed my mind once again. I'm notorious for having a set list of poems and then hitting the microphone and totally changing my mind, so I've done it again. The book is called The Scorched Earth, and it is my account of coming to terms with 30 years of violence and showing up and taking the next step and believing in magic, and believing in love, and believing that I could be more than one more statistic of another abused woman who nearly lost her life. So instead of reading from that book, I'm going to read a couple of poems that are actually from two different manuscripts that I'm working on right now for two different books. The first one is called First Thought, January 28th, 2015. This is a new book that I'm working on. It's called The First Thoughts. First Thought. Today, the daylight is 1 minute and 41 seconds longer than yesterday. Second thought. I slept alone with the light on again last night. Third thought. I am afraid to love you. From you, I cannot hide anything. Fourth thought. The fever wolf haunts me. Holy God, but that wolf. Fifth thought. And the shotgun. Even now, when so many years have passed, that shotgun haunts me too. Fifth thought. You said, tell me the story behind you having to tell me to not ever cover your mouth again. You said it twice. Tell me. Sixth thought. My friend bought me pale orange roses, the color of kindergarten creamsicles, on the glass-topped table in a globed vase. They have been unfolding themselves all afternoon. Seventh thought. The cornhusk doll, made in late fall and placed on the sideboard below the west window, her arms flung open. You picked her up only days ago in the settle-down light of dusk. I watched you hold her in the expanse of your hand so gently, her arms flung open toward you. Harkins. I need a compass. I need breadcrumbs in the dark. I need red slippers and lipstick, both in shades of ruby. I need a passport. I need an anchor. I need unclipped wings and eagle oil on my shoulder blades and the memory of the air between Jupiter and the sun. I need the inside center of the color orange to be a little less intense. I need your voice to be 1 inch closer to my ear. I need a place to rest my hands and a caramel and perhaps a tiny pale tattoo that says, open with care. And I'm not going to read the poem about the mountain pushing people off. Oh my God, make it up. So I came to Taos with a man with some guns, and then I ran for a long time. And I was in Chicago for the National Poetry Slam finals with a dear friend of mine. Many of you know him because he has been in and about Taos for many years. And he walked me into a AT&T cell phone store and said, let's get new phone numbers, because my former partner had called 17 times in the previous hour. And we walked back out to Michigan Avenue, and he said to me, go back and fight. Because if you do not go back and fight for yourself, you will run forever. And he was right. And I went back and I fought, and I wrote this book, and I self-published it because there was no publisher in 1999 that was going to print a book that tells the story of 30 years of violence and what might come after it. And I went back to teaching at Penn State, and I kept coming back to Taos every summer. And it got harder every time to go back to Pennsylvania or New York or Philadelphia. And I wrote this poem in an apartment in New York. And it's amazing sometimes how our prayers are answered. Begging Bowl. I stood beneath the Rose of Sharon window in the church on 2nd and 14th after twilight services, and the sky was darkening beyond the stained glass, but those panes were lit up, eerie glow. I lit candles for the people I loved and for myself, praying to be led out into vastness, to hear only one voice that might speak truth. Strip it away, burn it clean, shake me down like a Saturday night boot heel spin. Nothing but you. Nothing, nothing but you. I prayed. And then walked out into the village for the weekend's unraveling and people waiting in an apartment 2 blocks away from me to come back quiet-eyed into their warmth. The prayers got me here. Years removed from the breath of them over those candles, I now live in a land of such vastness that my brain cannot comprehend it, even as the whole of me lifts into it beneath a sky where angels hover and dust devils are spirits traveling. I listen. There is silence and you. Each evening I am full. Each morning I wake open and empty to pin my spirit back into this coil of light. I have no idea where I am on timing. Once again. All right. So I moved here. I left Penn State, finally. Hallelujah. In 2006. And I came to Taos then for good after 7 or 8 years of the back and forth and back and forth. And I came on a 6-month poet in residence position at the Harwood Museum of Art. And in the first 8 months that I was here, I had a number of people in my life die. And they were people who had been my foundation, including my father, whose love had saved me as a little girl. And after his death, I couldn't write. It was months without writing, and I am a woman who writes every single day. I've been writing every day for 23 years. The only way I could begin to write again was in the voices of horses, because horses had been my father's animal. This is one of the horse poems. One horse. Here, beneath this mountain, I rest. I am alone in this field, her to the north of me, searching scrub for anything that might sustain me through the heat of this day, day after day. I feel myself alone, although there is the raven, the crow, the red-tailed hawk who hunts mornings here just beyond me, eyeing me in her arc. At dawn, that mountain spears a sky of welted red. By noon, she glimmers beneath the blue that holds me here. In the heat, all that I carry within my bones and hair surfaces. There is the dust, dried grasses, foxtail, this thinnest memory of rain. The heat and the blue hold me. The mountain looks on. In late afternoon, when the clouds roll and build their staircases above me, the pool of shadows at the mountain's base whisper across the crippling haze to me. Forgiveness. Forgiveness. until they are enough to move me, until I stand among them, until they are as gentled hands in my mane. This day's searching over my head, finally just hanging. I rest here. At dusk, the wind calls the clouds. The sun loses her fierceness, and then the light is silver. Sideways across the mountain to me, thrumming sparks along my outline as I leave the shadows for the open again. And you, in a car passing me on the road alongside this field, stop and park. I raise my head to face you. You come to the fence line, struck and staring, and stand until this light from the mountain reaches from me to you. And I'll do two short ones. The thing about the animals, as Clint pointed out, I seem to be visited by animals a lot, and it has been that way since I was very little. I dreamt of horses and ravens and crows and hawks, and I write a lot about the natural world and a lot about the animals and in the voices of animals. And this poem was an actual dream that terrified me when I first had it, and then I sketched it, and then I painted it, and then I realized nothing to be afraid of when a part of you surfaces and greets you. Avatar. Last night, the raven returned, whip-stitching ribbons into my hair with her beak. She labored from my left shoulder, careful not to puncture my flesh with her claws, ceaseless croon from that thinnest of throats. I watched us in the mirror, my eyes like green, sanded glass, the storm sky before the lightning strike, my arms naked and empty as bared branches. Hardwood held me, feet rooted a hip width apart. Her iron eyes fixed me in the glass, her own feather crown rucked up around her head, wing tucked into the hollow between my jaw and shoulder bones. One pony braid now hooks from my left temple. Tethered with a tail feather, she plucked and positioned into the paintbrush edge of my gathered hair. She is me. Myself when I am real. And the last poem I will read because lightning. I was born in a lightning storm. And I have a Taos story about having this amazing sweat lodge held in my honor. And a very long sweat lodge because people I love, a few of you are here, came and gathered and prayed for me before I left Penn State after I'd had a terrible car accident. And I was told when I left the sweat lodge to stay off the mesa because my risk of being struck by lightning was quite high because of what had happened in the sweat lodge, right? Only in Taos. Make it up. And I kept dreaming about lightning before the sweat lodge. And then that afternoon, what did I do but go up on the mesa and damn near get my ass struck by lightning after I had been told, stay away from the lightning. And so lightning kept coming back to me, and I was getting ready to go in and do a prison reading. I did readings in the maximum security prisons in Pennsylvania for 9 years, working with violent felony offenders. And I was doing all these prison readings around the violence and the survival and the scorched earth, the book, and I was writing love poems. And it took me a long time to figure it out. That in the face of such oppression and such fear and such mystery and so much that is unknowable about our futures, The only thing that ever saves us is love. Love and beauty. But you have to love beauty for beauty to be able to save you. And so it comes down to love and holding the people who most need to be held is an act of service that is about love. Twin streaks of lightning. Come and be a god with me. We will be of lesser gods as our blood in the loving beats with the recollection of holy. We are the roadmap of each other. We are reflecting mirror, collecting pool. We are the praying ground. We are the prayer and the very answer itself. Thank you. So I do want to say there are resources available for women who are homeless in Taos, and we can get that information to anybody after the show who might need it. The men's shelter currently exists as freestanding. The women's shelter does not, but just because it is not freestanding does not mean that you are alone. We can provide you with shelter. Clint and his team can help you do that. Thank you very much. I love you.
Thank you. That's hero shit right there.